The story of Desmond Doss doesn't begin on a battlefield. It begins with a boy standing between his father and his mother, watching a violent argument spiral out of control in a small Virginia home. A bottle, a raised hand, a sudden surge of fear, and a decision made in a moment most of us forget: to never touch a weapon, to never take a life, not because he was weak, but because he learned, too early, what violence looked like when it entered a home. The world would call him naive. The army would call him a problem. His commanders would call him insane. But history would call him something else. In 1945, on a jagged cliff in Okinawa, under machine gun fire and artillery blasts, Desmond Doss would save 75 men without firing a single shot. Before he became a legend, he was simply a quiet young man who believed two things: that war was sometimes necessary, and that killing was not. Those two beliefs collided the moment he enlisted. He didn't join the army to avoid combat. He joined because he felt it was wrong to let others die in a war while he stayed home safe. His motivation wasn't glory or violence, it was duty. But his duty had a boundary. He told the army he would serve as a medic. He would run into danger. He would rescue soldiers. He would patch wounds, drag bodies, stop bleeding, stabilize shattered limbs. He would do everything except carry a weapon. It sounded absurd. It sounded impossible. It sounded dangerous. And his fellow soldiers hated him for it. They insulted him, mocked him, beat him, demanded he quit. To them, a man who refused to carry a rifle was a man who could not be trusted in battle. But Desmond stayed, not with anger, not with pride, just quiet persistence. He trained harder than the others, ran longer, carried more weight, learned every medical technique he could. His commanders tried to court-martial him, tried to throw him out, tried to break him, but every time they pushed him, he repeated the same sentence: "My religion teaches me not to kill, but I'll serve my country as a medic without a weapon." Eventually, the army gave in, and Doss shipped out. He served in Guam, he served in Leyte, but the place where his story would be written in history books was a steep, unforgiving cliff in Okinawa. The Maida Escarpment, the soldiers called it another name, Hacksaw Ridge, a half-kilometer of vertical climb leading to a plateau controlled by deeply entrenched Japanese forces. Every time the Americans climbed it, they were thrown back down. Every time they tried to hold ground, artillery cut them apart. Every movement across the ridge was met with rifles, machine guns, mortars, and explosions erupting from tunnels carved into the rock. On April 29, 1945, Doss and the 77th Infantry Division were ordered to take it. The climb was brutal: ropes cutting into hands, feet scraping against rock, the sky disappearing behind them as they pulled themselves upward to the plateau. When they reached the top, the world became hell. Shells erupted in red dirt. Bodies were thrown into the air. Screams cut through smoke and dust. Japanese soldiers rose out of tunnels like ghosts, firing before they were fully visible. Within minutes, the ridge was littered with wounded men, and in the chaos, Doss moved. No weapon, no armor, only a medic bag and the belief that every life mattered. He crawled to the first soldier, dragging him behind a rock. He sprinted through gunfire to bandage a man whose leg had been mangled. He pressed his hands against torn flesh, ignoring bullets snapping past his ears. Every time someone shouted "medic," he ran toward the sound. At one point, a mortar exploded near him, slamming him into the ground. Dirt filled his mouth, his vision blurred, his ears rang, but he got up and kept going. Hours passed. Wave after wave of Japanese counterattacks slammed into the Americans. The ridge became a slaughterhouse. Finally, the order was given: retreat. The entire unit began climbing down ropes to escape the ambush. Everyone except Desmond, because he heard something. A voice, faint, weak, lost somewhere in the smoke. "Help me." Doss looked at the ridge now, occupied almost entirely by enemy soldiers, then made a decision that defies logic. He went back, alone, up the ridge, into the gunfire, into the shadows where wounded men lay hidden under bodies and debris. He found one, dragged him to the edge, tied a rope around him, lowered him down the cliff by hand. Then he whispered a sentence no general ever planned for: "Lord, please help me get one more." And he went back in, again, and again, and again. For hours, Doss crawled through mud soaked with blood, past soldiers who had already died, searching for those who still had a chance. Every time he saved one, he carried him on his back through machine gun fire. Every time he reached the cliff, he rigged a rope, lowered the wounded man down, and went back for another, 75 times. Some were conscious, trembling, begging him to leave them behind. Doss answered every one, "No, you're going home." One soldier later said, "I don't know how he decided who to save. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he just refused to let anyone die alone." By dawn, the bodies of the rescued formed a line at the bottom of the cliffman, who should have died but didn't. Because a medic who refused to carry a rifle refused to abandon them. When Doss finally collapsed, he had nearly bled out. His hands were raw, his uniform was shredded, his body was shaking with exhaustion. But he had done something no soldier in modern history had done. He fought a battle without fighting at all, and won, because saving lives is also a form of victory. The army that once tried to court-martial him now stood in awe. Word spread through the division, through the island, through military command, about a man who faced the same enemy, the same bullets, the same terror, but chose a different response. He became the first conscientious objector in American history to receive the Medal of Honor. President Harry Truman personally presented it to him. He looked at Doss and said, "I'm proud of you. I consider this a greater honor than being president." Doss didn't smile proudly. He didn't see himself as a hero. He only said, "I just didn't want to see my boys die." After the war, Desmond tried to return to normal life. He worked, he married, he lived quietly. His body never fully recovered. Shrapnel stayed lodged in him. His lungs were damaged by tuberculosis contracted during service. He lost a lung. His health declined, but he never complained. When asked if he regretted not carrying a weapon, his answer was always the same. "No, my weapon was my faith." He lived the rest of his life far from cameras or parades. No speeches, no self-promotion, just a man who believed saving life was more important than taking it. Desmond Doss died in 2006. But his story did not, because sometimes history is shaped not by those who shout the loudest, but by those who quietly refuse to surrender their principles, even when surrounded by fire. Hacksaw Ridge was a battlefield. But to the men who watched Desmond Doss crawl through bullets carrying their friends on his back, it was something else too. Proof that courage does not always look like aggression. Sometimes, courage looks like gentleness, walking straight into danger. Desmond Doss never lifted a rifle, but he lifted 75 wounded men out of hell. And sometimes, that is the greatest act of strength a human being can offer. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, be sure to subscribe for more tales of incredible human spirit.